In a world where every new VST seems to be yet another analog emulation or just a rehash of old ideas, it is refreshing when you find a product that brings something new to the table. A plugin that lets you introduce a new angle to your workflow or take something very static and transform it totally into something exciting. Well, buckle up, because in today's video we're looking at a plugin that does all of those things and a bunch more. So let's get straight into it. In this video, we're going to put the spotlight on Ultraloop, and we're going to showcase how you can use it to get a creative edge and take your tracks in exciting new directions in ways that no other plugin can. So, what is it? Essentially, it's an advanced loop layering tool that uses a slick visual workflow, and it generates grooves, beats, and loops from up to 8 different samples. And with all the sequencing, randomization, and automation options, Ultraloop can go really, really deep. Best of all though, this thing is just so much fun to work with, and getting great results is a piece of cake. Let's get into it. Ultraloop is a premium Reaktor instrument, and it's made by the very clever guys at Twisted Tools. Link is in the description, and yes, the site is still live. I bought Ultraloop just in July 2025 without any issues whatsoever. First up, this isn't going to be a deep dive into every function that Ultraloop has. There's already some great videos out there that do that. In this video, I'm going to showcase exactly how you can use Ultraloop to mash up samples and just create an endless supply of fantastic sounding loops. And the great news is that Ultraloop lets you load and work with your own samples. But before we get into that, it is worth saying that Ultraloop comes with a huge amount of samples and presets, and they let you just get straight into work and get your teeth into Ultraloop. And there's even a whole suite of presets that demonstrate all of Ultraloop's functions and features step by step, which is extremely helpful. Let's start by taking a quick look at the GUI. When I'm using Ultraloop, I like to think of it as having two separate sections, which is this one at the top, and that is the sequencer window, and this one at the bottom, which deals with sample selection and the various grids around track sequencing, effect sequencing, and effects. In the sequencer window at the moment, you can't see any waveforms, but what you can see is 8 different lines, and what Ultraloop does is layers 8 different samples, one on top of the other, and the way that you can see them is just to click play. And I think that just gives us a good opportunity to showcase a couple of the presets so you can see Ultraloop in action before we delve into the GUI. So let's kick off with the first, which is Energy Pyramid, and then we'll just cycle through some of the others. Study. So now you can see we have the 8 different samples loaded one on top of the other, and you can see each waveform. What we can also see is these lovely colored boxes, and the colored boxes are showing which part of which loop is audible at that particular step. So the first step in the sequence of 16, as you can see here, is loop number 2, and then it plays the next 3 steps, and then it will move down to loop number 3, down to loop number 4 for these 4 sections, and then down to loop number 8. And I'll just press play again, and you should see the playhead moving across the top there nicely, just indicating which step we're at any given point in time. And there we go. And if you want to change the sequence, it's a very simple matter of just clicking and dragging. And as you can see here, each sample has its own color. Each box is essentially a gate that is switching that section of that sample on as the playhead moves across it. In its default state, Ultraloop is monophonic, but we have a very handy polyphonic mode here, and what that allows you to do is to play multiple layers at the same time. As you can see here, let's say you want to play loop 8 in addition to others, you can now do that, and let's say we want to play half of loop number 1 as well as the others like that. That is now a possibility. And also note, when you switch the polyphonic mode off, it will stay in place as you recorded it, but then everything else, all subsequent amendments, will go back to mono. Let's take a look here, and what we can see is a variety of different controls, and you simply access these by clicking. It highlights, and then you click down the side here to activate that given function. So we're on mute, which means I have muted this loop, and this loop. And to unmute, just click them again. Similarly with solo, you can just solo a couple of the sounds. Let's see what that sounds like with just these two playing solo. There you go, quite simple. And you can actually lock samples as well. And what that means is that when you're clicking random, which we'll get to a little bit later, fantastic function, what that means is that these locked samples will remain as they are when you lock them, and you can see the little padlock there appear when you do that. So there's quite a few functions there. I'm not going to go into all of them. Another good one is reverse. So what we're going to do here, switch to the reverse mode and just drag and drop so that everything is playing in reverse. If we take a look across the top here, what we see is yellow cells, and these are the effects cells. And what's happening here is similar to the window with the samples in it. It's pretty much a gate. If it's yellow, the effects will be turned on at that given point as the playhead runs over it. And if it's black, it is switched off. And it's the same functionality, left click and drag, and left click to get rid of, just like that. So as the playhead moves, when it hits a yellow sector, the effects will be triggered, and we'll get into those a little bit later. So that is the effects per step, and we need to make sure that the FX on function is switched on, and similarly to the functions here, you just need to make sure that you want the effects to apply to the yellow row and the green row. So that means that whenever the step and the loop are both switched on, the effects will trigger on that loop at that time. And to turn off, simply turn off and they won't trigger. I've said a couple of times that Ultraloop works with samples, and if we take a look at this little colorful window down here, this is where you determine which samples are being played on which layer. So within Reaktor, you can load up to 127 different samples. And what we can see here on each of these lines is, if you take a look at this section here, it will show you which sample is being played. So let's pick sample layer 1. And as you can see there, that just click on it and it shows you sample 100 is being played on the first layer. And if you want to change that so that it's playing a different sample, you simply left click and move it down to reduce the number. Let's say you want to play sample 50, or you can move it up, obviously, to a different sample. And it's as simple as that. So when we take a look here, sample layer 1 is number 109. Layer number 2 is number 11, and so on. You can see there just by clicking to the right of the bar exactly what number is being played. So that's exactly how you determine which sample is being played on which layer. And if we take a look here, this is another handy Reaktor feature. This is the range slider, So what you can do is reduce or increase the window of samples available to Ultraloop to trigger in the sequencer. So take a look here again. This will show you the number that you are at. So at the moment you are right at the limit. You're playing all 127. Let's say you just want to play the first 50 or 49 or 50. There we go. You drag it down, left click, drag down, and now Ultraloop will only have access to the first 50. And let's say if we really want to reduce the pool of samples available, you can drag the lower threshold here just like this, so that it's only playing samples 21 to 50. So that is the sample management. Quite simple, quite easy, and you just drag and move about like this. And it's a fantastic way of managing the samples in a very visual, appealing fashion. If we take a look just below here, you can see the Randomizer button, and this is a very powerful function within Ultraloop. For each of the windows here, as you can see, there's a randomizer. Click that and it will randomize the function within that window. So within the sampler, it's going to randomize the sample being played on each layer. As simple as that, very powerful, but it goes beyond that. The further you click away from the left hand side, the bigger the randomization will be. So if you only click here and just watch these as they change while I press randomize. So they're just minor changes happening there to the samples that are being triggered. Let's say I want to go a bit wild and I want to change everything. There you go. So that functionality is really great for coming up with random ideas on the fly, and you get a global randomizer up here which randomizes everything where the green button is switched on. As you can see there's all kind of randomizations going on globally, and you've got the same functionality through all of these different windows here. Let's just have a bit of a play with the randomizer there and see what difference that makes to the energy pyramid preset. So you can see with just a couple of clicks on the randomizer, it's giving you all kinds of different ideas and sounds, and they all sound pretty good. So that is the very basics of the sampler and the sample window. Let's take a look at the sequencers and the FX controls. Let's take a look at the sequencer and FX controls grids down here. Essentially what we can see here is a grid of 17 different cells, and each cell represents a sequence in the sequencer window. So if we take a look at that, that is the default, and if we move it to any of the other cells, they're currently all empty, but then Ultraloop will use that sequence to trigger the effects. Worth noting at this point is whenever you let go from a cell, it will go back to the default, which is handy if you are just playing and you just want to intermittently change the sequence and then go back to the default. It will ping back. We have pin mode, which is where we can move the cell and it will stay there until you move it back. So let's program some different sequences into the cells. And that really is very easy indeed. So we're in cell 1, as you can see here. And for cell 1, I just want, let's say, all of layer 8. Cell 2, I want all of layer 2. And cell 3, let's just go bananas and do a bit of everything. There we go. That should do that. So what I'm going to do is just set Ultraloop running, and then we'll start with the default and then move between the 3 cells where we've changed the sequence. So that is how the grid and the cells work. It's exactly the same for the FX sequence, the FX gestures, and you even have the same functionality for the loops. And if you look very carefully, you can still see the settings for the loops all grayed out there. But when you want to move to the grid mode, simply click here. Nice and simple. So let's repeat the process very quickly on the FX so you can see how that works. I'll go into pin mode, and this is the default effects. Let's move down to here, and let's say we just want the first 4, and we want to get rid of these. And there you go, you get the idea. It's exactly the same as the track sequence. And when you click play and move through them, you will have a different effect sequence running as per your instructions within the cell. So that's how the cells and the grid work. Fantastic functionality added into Ultraloop. But it does go one step further. What we can actually do is record the movement that we are doing in Ultraloop as it's being done with the record and playback features. So let's take a look at how that works. To make use of the automation function, we just need a couple of things. We need to make sure that we are in record mode, so we activate that. And then you probably saw this line pop up here. This is an indicator of where you are at in the loop that you are recording. And you get to define the loop length here. That goes all the way down to 4, which would be a very fast loop. But let's make use of 32 so that we get a bit of time to record a couple of changes to the cell. So all we need to do now is just press play and start moving the cells, and Reaktor will record that for us. So there we go. And to playback, you need to make sure that both the record and the play are activated. And what we'll see now is the cells moving just as I recorded that automation. And there you go, it's as simple as that. And it's exactly the same functionality for the FX sequencer, the FX gestures, and the loops. So fantastic feature there of adding a lot of variation and keeping interest in the loops that you're creating, and it's real easy. And in a nutshell, that is Ultraloop. It takes advantage of some of the really powerful features that come with Reaktor. Hopefully you've seen that in action there. It's such a great tool for really mixing things up and creating all kinds of new sounds out of the sounds you've already got. And it's just so much fun to use, and the results that it delivers are really great. I absolutely love Ultraloop. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you like what you saw, be sure to drop a like and leave a comment. Make sure to subscribe because we've got all kinds of great content in the pipeline for you. And check out the channel. It's absolutely packed with videos that you are going to love. Here's a couple of videos that YouTube is very kindly recommending for you. Why not watch one of them? And I'll see you in the next one.